We just wrapped up our 2 months in Turkey. We want to share with you some tips and recommendations based on our own experience. Stick around to the end where we'll share our total costs for our month in Istanbul.
Istanbul is a sprawling city with a population of 15.6 million people. It has a rich history that is worth understanding before visiting. A quick and engaging way to learn a bit of the history is to watch the Netflix series Rise of Empires, Ottoman. It will give you a sense of how Constantinople was conquered and will help you get a much better understanding of the topography. If it's your first time visiting Istanbul, there are two main tourist areas and the Asian side of the city that are probably on your radar. The first main area is Beyoğlu, which includes the well-known Galata Tower, which played a major role in the fall of Constantinople. There is also Istiklal Street, which is a major tourist shopping area. Stephanie and I had avoided this area as it was fairly expensive and very crowded. However, it is a very popular area with tourists. From this area you can catch a metro to other parts of the city. Since we were staying in Galata, we used the metro to access other parts of the city to do our shopping. The second major area is the Fatih district. Fatih means conqueror in Turkish. This is where the historical city of Constantinople used to reside, and where you will find the most popular tourist sites and museums, including the Hagia Sophia and Sultanahmet or Blue Mosque. Expect to spend several days visiting this area. We recommend visiting the Hagia Sophia and the Sultanahmet Mosque. Don't miss out on just wandering around the city. We found the shops outside the Grand Bazaar and Spice Market to be more interesting than visiting the insides. Walking from the Grand Bazaar toward the Spice Market was particularly interesting. The third area that is important to visit is the Asian side of the city. It has a completely different pace of life, which we really enjoyed. We made several day trips to Kadıköy. We also visited Üsküdar, which is a more conservative part of the city. Everywhere we visited was accessible by ferry and very easy to access. We also recommend taking a Bosphorus tour. There are ferries dedicated to these tours that were as cheap as $4 US. You can easily spend more if you would like a more upscale experience.
A visa is required to visit Turkey for most nationalities. In spite of what happened to us, we'll link the video below, we still recommend getting an e-visa and printing it out before you travel. If for some reason your e-visa doesn't work, hint hint, you can still get a stamp visa at the airport. It's a pretty simple process.
What might be surprising on your first visit is the number of cats and dogs roaming freely throughout the city. What we learned is that there is a culture of animal welfare in Turkey and laws that protect animals from harm. The local municipality catches and then spays and neuters these animals and then releases them back into the community. The community then feeds and cares for these animals. In some of our videos, you may even notice some cat houses or animals that are walking around behind us. While we were staying in Izmir, we noticed that people seem to have a strong connection to many of these animals, some of them even sleeping on or next to people in parks. As foreigners, this is not something we're used to. However, the cats and dogs didn't really bother us, and we felt quite safe walking around the neighborhoods.
We found the public transportation in Istanbul to be quite extensive and very easy to use. They have buses, a metro line, trams, and a light rail. We ended up using all of them. Ferries too. To use the public transportation in Istanbul, you will need to get an Istanbul card. There are lots of videos online saying how easy it is to get them, and for some people I'm sure they are. It was a little confusing for us at first, and also we felt a little bit of pressure when we were lined up at the yellow machines. There always seemed to be a queue behind us of people who knew what they were doing and wanted to get their cards topped off and get on the transportation very quickly. We ended up getting our first card from a Migros Jet, which you'll find all over the city. We just asked the cashier and we were able to get one and then put some money on it at the metro stations. That's pretty easy to do. You will need to have cash with you to top up your cards. They don't accept credit cards. We definitely recommend that you get on a ferry at least once to your visit to Istanbul. It's a really great experience to be out on the water. It's how people move around every day, and how quite a lot of people move around every day, which was kind of surprising for us.
Istanbul is very walkable. However, it's built on some very steep hills, so bear in mind that you're going to be walking up and down hills frequently. Additionally, many streets and paths are cobblestone, so make sure you choose appropriate walking attire. Since the city is quite large, we supplemented quite a bit with public transportation. There are a lot of options here. We chose to hire a car using a company called Welcome Pickups. They have an app online that you can download from the App Store. We just didn't want to deal with trying to hire a taxi or use ride sharing or other types of public transportation on our travel day. You can watch our Zaragoza to Alicante video to see what happened when we tried to use a ride-hailing app on our travel day.
So after doing a lot of research on the water quality in Istanbul, we did discover that it's technically safe to drink. A lot of locals, however, don't do this, and part of this is because of the age of the water pipes in the city and in the buildings. People are concerned that the old pipes might leach some chemicals and toxins into the water. Most residents will drink bottled water, and that's what we ended up doing. You can find 6-liter bottles of water for less than $1 US. This is what we chose to do. It was a little heavy carrying it up 67 steps in our Airbnb, but it was definitely worth it. Our tap water in Istanbul smelled like chlorine.
We found grocery shopping a bit challenging. There were no large grocery stores nearby, so we didn't have the greatest selection of products for cooking at home. We made it work by periodically visiting a M Migros. Migros is a large grocery store chain in Turkey. The larger Migros stores actually have a really good selection of products, which we enjoyed, but unfortunately, they tended to be further away from where we were living. We were also fortunate to find local farmers markets that enabled us to buy some local produce, which was really high quality and we really enjoyed using for our cooking at home.
We find our accommodations typically on Airbnb. We were planning on visiting Croatia after Spain, but there was a change that was out of our control and we were a bit rushed in trying to find the next place to visit. We decided to come to Turkey, but because of the stress and time constraints, we felt a bit rushed in finding our accommodation. Prices were a little bit more than we had expected to pay here in Turkey, but we ended up finding some nice places to stay and we're pretty happy with them. In hindsight, the next time we come to Istanbul, we'll definitely stay on the Asian side. Accommodations are less expensive, a little more spacious and seem to be nicer, and the atmosphere on the Asian side was much more relaxed than they were in the old city or the European side.
There were several things we learned while dining out. First, you simply seat yourself at a table and then someone will come to take your order. When you're ready to leave, you need to ask for the bill. In some restaurants, you will see the term self-service. This means you need to order at the counter and then seat yourself. Someone, in most cases, will bring food to your table. In self-service restaurants, you pay after you've finished your meal. We found dining in restaurants that were away from the main tourist areas to be the highest quality and least expensive. Don't be afraid of the language barrier. We found that most people were very kind, and in fact, most people were really excited to share with us the types of food that they were serving. Usually, we could get by with just a couple of words, but pointing always works. On the pricier side, we dined out for around $26 US, but you could pay substantially more if you'd like. A typical street food stall will average around $6 to $8 for a meal for two.
As in many countries, over-the-counter medications are sold exclusively in pharmacies. This is the same in Turkey. One of the most common over-the-counter medications people buy is ibuprofen. In Turkey, it's called Brufen. We've found it very useful in the past to look up the name of the medication we're looking for online before we go into the pharmacy. Typically, you can find a picture of the medication online and show it to the pharmacist when you go to look for it. If you need sunscreen or facial products, the pharmacy is also where you would find them. In Turkey, they call the pharmacies eczane.
You can usually find restrooms around mosques or city-run restrooms around the more popular tourist sites. The city-run restrooms were 1 Turkish lira while we were there. You can also use your Istanbul card to pay for access. Be careful with some of the restrooms in the bazaars. They tried to scam Stephanie while we were there. She wasn't having any of it, but just be on the alert.
Here are the cost breakdowns for our month in Istanbul. Have to reference some notes for this. Our accommodations through Airbnb were $1,716. Like I said, a little pricey. Groceries were about $450. Dining out, $275. Transportation, $136. This was for both of us and we used public transportation quite extensively. Our entertainment costs for the month were about $200. This included several museums and a sunset Bosporus cruise. Note that mosques are free to enter. Our total cost for the month was $2,772. We hope these tips have helped you and will make your trip to Turkey a little easier. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments below. Thanks for joining us. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.